live TV for you. Hello and welcome to SolveTank, where we SaaSOps professionals get together and we review an application and then we give our opinion, almost like Shark Tank style, but this is SolveTank. And we are, a few of us today, to discuss a very great agent-based automation platform that allows you to streamline your help desk ticketing system and Slack integrations. Guys, we all have Slack, don't we? We all have help desks. We all have a ticketing system. What about if they all work seamlessly together? And thankfully, Vlad is here from Focal today to demo and explain to us what their product does. Over to you, Vlad. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for the nice intro. I think you just said it. If you had all these systems that just like work together, would that be great? That's it. That's the whole pitch. There you go. I'm done.
Join us next week where we have an even shorter show.
Okay, so let me share my screen real quickly. So I'll talk you through, maybe 4 or 5 slides because I don't know. Maybe try to set up the problem and tell a story, and then I'm gonna go straight into a demo because I think that's easier. But hey, your team has a bunch of stuff to do, like you're rolling out Okta or Jamf or something, and you're giving people access to stuff, and you're creating secure processes for onboarding and all this other stuff. So imagine you're in the day, you're trying to do some stuff, and all of a sudden here comes this dude, James, and he's like, hey, can I get access to Salesforce? And it's like, did you create a ticket? What's a ticket? Just go to this place. How do I log in? Like, never mind. I'll just do it for you, right? Or they actually do create a ticket, which is vague and abstract and isn't categorized, or they go find your ticketing system and they don't actually categorize it correctly and stick something into the general bucket where it really should be under some kind of access request bucket or something. So what ends up happening is people just kind of direct message you in Slack, and then you end up just kind of changing your list to going like, screw it, I'll just give this person access real quickly because I don't feel like messing with it and waiting for them to do stuff, or waiting for them to create a ticket. So kind of the things that we see is it's really difficult for sometimes, like depending on the system, but sometimes it becomes really difficult for people to create tickets. And what's the point of people creating a ticket when they can just DM you with whatever they want, and it often just kind of gets done. And then in the bigger scheme of things, like you shouldn't really be getting Slack requests while watching the House of Dragon. Is anybody watching House of Dragon? No. Really? Yeah, there you go. I got 1 out of 4. That's
well, I did watch the first episode, but it was a little bit too much for we'll see how the others go. But yeah.
I might need to update my reference
while trying to watch that.
Well, trying to watch it. I don't know. Maybe I need what's a show that we can all like agree on is awesome.
Ted Lasso.
Ted Lasso.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fair. Ted Lasso is good. Is there a season? Was it 3 or 4 coming up anytime soon?
I think next year because of the pandemic. I think it affected their schedule.
Got it. Well, anyway, you shouldn't be getting Slack requests while watching Ted Lasso. You should be hanging out at home, and the tickets should be kind of being created in the ticketing system without you having to do anything, without you being DM'd in the middle of the night. So let's just take a quick look at like what Vox did when they're working with Focal Agent, and then kind of take it from there. So here's kind of the plan, right? People are creating requests in Slack. People are going to bother you in Slack. So instead of trying to redirect them to a different ticketing system, just give them Slack as an interface for creating tickets. So it's a 3-part kind of process. The first part, or maybe 4, the first part is you go create a channel like IT Help Desk. If you don't already have one, basically invite all of your employees into it, set it up as the default channel so that all your new employees get added automatically. And then the second step is you invite the bot. And what this does is that this thing will basically sit at the bottom of the channel so that anytime there's any kind of conversation, this thing will just move itself down. So it's just an easy way for people to like find the big button that says create a request, and there's nowhere else that people have to go, right? So if anybody asks a question, just like go into IT Help Desk and just ask the question there. You don't need to do anything, right? So there's a couple of different ways that people can create tickets. One is they can go into the channel directly, and that actually gets picked up as a ticket, or we can turn that off and we can make it so that the channel is for conversation. And then this thing that sits at the bottom is really just for the ticket creation process. So people go in here. So step one, create the channel, invite everybody into it. Step two, invite the bot. And then once you invite the bot, then you can start kind of creating different request types. So based on what, they want, now you can start getting them to categorize the tickets correctly, right? So maybe you have one that's a general request, and maybe that's a little bit further in the game, but then for most stuff, you can create requests, right? So you'll have your standard like password access, software access, hardware, something, onboarding, offboarding, getting a MFA lockout, all of that stuff. So you can create different request types. And then for every type of these request types, you'll have just different fields, right? So for example, for a software request, you might just have a drop-down list of like which software you want access to. For a offboarding request, you might have like the employee that needs to be offboarded and the date of the offboarding or something, right? So you can keep it pretty simple, or you can get pretty complicated with which fields you display and how they display. Another one, just for the purpose of this test, I'll do a hardware one where, let's say I want to do you can choose, different fields, and then different fields can have even like different subfields. So for example, I chose monitor. Under monitor, I'm going to choose the size of monitor, or I can choose a laptop. And then for the laptop, I can choose that it's a MacBook Pro 14. And for that, I can say, M1 Pro. So, laptop. So the idea is that making Slack kind of the interface for people to create tickets, very, very simple. It's, people can go in, just create tickets, and there's not really any work. So I'm going to create this as a ticket. What you've seen is that in the channel, it doesn't really display anything. There's actually two ways to do this. One, you can create public tickets, which basically display directly in the channel. You might want to do something like that for like just a general request, like what is the Wi-Fi password or something, right? It's a general enough question that anyone can see the answer to. There's nothing protected about it. So you can actually have it posted in the channel. Because this was a hardware request, they made it a private request. And what a private request means is that instead of everyone being engaged in this conversation, now now the bot will DM you and will start a thread, and basically here's the kind of back and forth for that ticket. So now the entire conversation still with the end user happens in Slack. In the back end, there's a ticket created for it. And now you can have that back and forth, and then the user is just getting updated in Slack. It's just like a regular conversation for them. In terms of, when you say ticketing system, there's a few different options there. We do integrate with Jira. We do integrate with Zendesk. We integrate with a few more kind of ticketing systems that are more on the customer support side. If anybody's using for IT, that'd be just kind of crazy, but we do integrate with existing ticketing systems, or we have our own ticketing system. And then before I go kind of to the back end ticketing side, I'll kind of walk through a couple of things. One common thing is that there's approval workflows. So we built approval workflows into the product directly. The way that works is that you could set up different approval workflows, and you can use things like Okta or OneLogin or kind of other systems to look up certain factors. So you could say, okay, I want to send out an approval to the manager for the hardware, right? Like because I'm asking for a laptop, I could say, okay, if the request is a laptop, send an approval to the manager, and then maybe also send an approval to finance, and then also maybe in parallel or sequentially send an approval to, I don't know, security or something, right? So you can actually have all these approvals sent out. And basically what it looks like is just, you can, customize this, but it sends it out in Slack. The approver can get this message. They can approve it, reject it. They can get more information, which is kind of like a back and forth thing. They can forward it to somebody else. But the entire approvals process is kind of built inside of Slack as well. And then the last thing I'll kind of bring up here is no matter what you do, you're going to give people all of the possibilities of creating tickets and make it as simple as possible. But they're still going to DM you because people are people. So then what you do is you just hover over any message, click create ticket, and then you can create a ticket from here as well. And then what you would do is as an agent, you can actually, create the ticket, but you can, as an agent, you have an option of creating a ticket on behalf of somebody else. So you create the ticket on behalf of somebody else. It sets up the message with them, the entire conversations with them. You can kind of step out of it entirely. So that's the backend piece, or that's like the ticket creation part. Now on the backend side, again, this fully integrates with Zendesk. You can create Zendesk tickets. You can create Jira tickets in both of those situations. It creates a ticket. Once you add a public comment to either the Zendesk ticket or the Jira ticket, it updates the thread. Once you update the message in here, it sends once you update the message in here, like once you the customer or the end user sends a message in Slack, it updates the ticket kind of wherever it is. Or we have our own ticketing system here. So if you go in, you can kind of see, so we have a ticketing system, has the kind of standard view of like, here's all your tickets. There's a Kanban view, there's a flat view, there's a couple of different views of this. You can see your tickets, you can see your team's tickets, you can group by different things, sort by different things. Then if you kind of go into it, you can, on the left side, you have all the information about the user. So you can see not only their Slack information, but then also like their contact info out of Okta or something. So you can find like the manager and all this other stuff. You can specify which fields you want to see. You can respond directly from here. So I can say, hey, hello, I can help with stuff. So when I send this back, it kind of like doesn't matter where it comes from, but it can go where the ticket is, but then it comes back to the user. In this case, it was a private context. It sent it back in that thread. It looks like me, and in every way, it's just a message that looks like it's coming from me, but it's coming from the application. And then the other little thing that I'll kind of mention here is, so you can have the full conversation. You can add, you can change all the values in the fields and assignments, and you can set up, SLAs, and you can make things higher priority, lower priority, tagging, that kind of stuff, inject articles. But the other kind of fun feature is that you can actually invoke certain things. So for example, with this Okta integration, you can actually directly from here, add a user to a group, remove a user from a group, delete a user, unlock a user, reset users, MFAs, kind of all of those different actions you can take directly from here. Similarly, we integrate with Kanji. You can, lock a device, you can unlock a device, you can, reinstall, that kind of stuff. So you can do all of that stuff without even leaving the interface, and it'll just kind of kick off into, Okta do the thing. And because we have these last couple minutes, so the last, because we have these integrations, you can actually automate them and put them as part of the workflow. So what we have is this, as part of these request types, you can actually build out workflows. So that hardware one, too many hardware requests. So as wrong hardware request. So as part of that hardware request, what I did is I created this workflow that basically says, okay, send an approval. And when an approval is completed, what do you want to do? So I can create a task. I can actually call out to, something like CDW and actually order the device. If it's a software approval, I can call out to Okta automatically and add a user to a group to approve them to that software. You can do all this. So we integrate with a bunch of stuff, and then there's a bunch of like actions and stuff you can take. So you can conditionally do something. You can send a user. You can assign stuff to people. You can add stuff to different groups. You can go and call one of these integrations and kind of, execute some kind of command to, add a user to something, kick off some other workflow, do something else. So at a high level, to take a step back at all of this is, instead of having people messaging you in Slack and people DMing you in Slack, basically make this the interface, allow people to just create tickets from here. What we've actually seen, and why I brought up Box in the beginning, they instead of pooling it, having this big long rollout strategy, what they did is they created a bunch of request types, that rolled out this button. And they actually have, because of the version of Slack, what they do is they can actually make this an announcements only channel so that people can't type. So what they already had a channel called something like Help Desk or IT Help Desk or something. They rolled this thing out, no change management, no announcement, no nothing. The next day, people just started creating tickets. And what they saw was, first of all, tickets weren't getting dropped and stuff because the tickets were coming into their ticketing system. So they weren't getting forgotten, right? Because in the past, people would go into the channel, ask something, it would get lost and nobody would respond to it, nobody would see it. So now what's happening is all of those requests were getting ticketed, so none of them were getting dropped. They were getting categorized correctly. So what they saw was they went from something like 20% of the time the tickets were actually categorized in the correct ticket type to something like 80% of the tickets were correctly categorized into the right ticket type. And then they saw their ticket numbers actually go up because now there's more things being ticketed and accounted for, and people weren't DMing people. So at a high level, allow your users to create tickets in Slack and then manage the tickets however you want to manage them and do however you want to do. And then the other part of it is automate it out so that you can actually reduce your tickets by just using built-in automations. So what questions do you have?
Excellent. Thank you, Vlad. I know we all like automations here and we hate being DM'd directly. Prefer things, certainly if we're all working with a team, prefer things to go to a team for a group of people to be managing things rather than those individuals. David, Brian, Marcus, questions? Brian, David, I can see you've taken yourself off mute, so I'm guessing you have a question.
Well, I have it very much similar setup in my current company. I think I briefly mentioned that in a couple of meetings ago, how our Slack messages turns into ticket, and we leverage this app called Help, which now is owned by Atlassian. So we got really lucky because our ticket runs in Jira, so they bought the thing, and we're okay. But seems like, just compared to just looking at the demo here, seems like your capability is fairly comprehensive, because like Help had its own ticketing queue view as well. But the thing is, you could actually integrate with Jira, but that ticketing queue window, it seems like you have more functionalities baked into it. Do you have the ability to route the ticket to Jira?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So the two kind of most common integrations we have with IT are Zendesk and Jira. With Jira, there's actually one of the interesting things that we're working on with it's kind of like a beta feature that we're releasing, and we can probably do an early demo of it. But do you use forms inside of Jira?
Yeah, that's the part that's really tricky, because we're just kind of used to be Help independent company, and the integration wasn't that good. But now that Help is now bought up by Atlassian, they're the one who's doing tight integration with Jira Software and Jira Service Desk, but it does take time for them to roll out that integration. So forms and fields, you just have to kind of like do it on the Atlassian side, right? And then hope that eventually there would be an integration with now it's called Assist app, right? But it seems like you can actually just like make your own things here.
Yeah, exactly. And why I was asking about Atlassian, so we have Atlassian, this one. What we did is, so this is an early version, so don't tell the world yet, and this is still in beta. But one of the things that we did was we built out this integration where we're actually pulling in the Atlassian forms natively. So and this actually is designed by using an Atlassian form or like a Jira form. So, and on all that custom logic of like showing and hiding fields is defined using a custom form. So for example, I had like option A would show up all these options, and then because I chose option A, it also, or this other radio option A, it shows me all these other options, right? So all of that displaying, hiding, making fields required and stuff is defined within Google Forms, in Atlassian Forms, and then you can actually render it here. And then once you click save, it actually goes and creates the ticket in the background, associates the fields into the right place, and creates a ticket kind of in Jira directly like that.
Interesting.
So your product across between what used to be Help plus some of the integration platform as service like Tines or N8N type of tool. It's like a mesh of the two, seems, because you can kind of create that workflow.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're trying to say this is like a specific, it's like, it's not like we're trying to do this for this and this. It's more like we've seen, customers that have these use cases, and they'll come up to us and say, hey, we launched this initially, and people come up and said, hey, we have a lot of approval workflows that we need to build, or we get a lot of approval requests. So we go build out an approval bot, make that as part of our approval process. And now we have one company that has this crazy approval process where it's like, if it's a specific software, it goes out to like these 3 types of approvals, like a security approval, and then the owner, the approval from the owner of the application, which also needs to be mapped by looking up in like a different table. And then there's all these like mapping between like application owners to who needs to be approving it and stuff. So basically what we did is we just follow kind of what our customers want. we build out these integrations, we build out these workflows, we build all this other stuff, we build out the features based on our customers. And this is kind of where we got to by kind of doing that is kind of this mesh of, requests building in Slack. The back end is a ticketing system, but then in the back end is also approvals, it's also workflows, it's also all this automation stuff.
Yeah. This is pretty good. This is really nice.
Yeah.
If I didn't go down this path of getting assist in Jira, this would be amazing for what I was looking for.
Yeah. I think the ability to pull in those existing forms, certainly if it's an Atlassian form, you don't have to change your process, because you can have your published Atlassian forms for people to submit stuff. But if somebody wants to access it in Slack, they can just change where they're accessing the form. Looking at your ticketing side of it, you had a chat feature. I'm guessing that doesn't write back, where you were talking to Sarah about her laptop. So that's a separate part, and this doesn't write back to Slack, and this doesn't pull in. This is just another chat component, but inside your platform, is it?
No, it does. It writes back to that thread. So wherever that kind of ticket came from. So this is where that hello, can I help with stuff when I miswrote it?
Okay.
Yeah. As soon as I respond from here, it does update the Slack. It does update like Slack with that message.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But then you can also add private. No, that's an attachment. You can also add private notes and stuff, so you can keep notes about things that are only visible by agents but not visible externally, and then you can have a conversation in here, kind of with like fellow agents without the end user seeing them as well.
Right. So if a company was a new company, relatively small, didn't have a ticketing system, they could use this before. Maybe they're on Microsoft Teams or they're on Google Chat, and they don't have Slack. They could still utilize these live interaction functions within the focal app part.
Yeah, and I mean, I think the other thing you can also do is we do have a customer-facing kind of knowledge, or like a customer-facing side of this, where a user can log in through something like Google email, or through Google or something, and then they can create requests directly from the web, and from this interface. You can see all your kind of open tickets, your closed tickets, so you can actually manage tickets here. You can see answers, which are kind of our knowledge base. So even if you don't have Slack, you can kind of see, you can create a request, you can see answers and stuff. But maybe the ticketing piece will be a little bit different for you.
All right, excellent. Marcus, Brian, both come off mute at the same time. I think Marcus had Brian by a fraction of a second.
Damn. Well, just have a few questions. One, so you, I think you might have shown it with the form, but I just want to confirm. So you say you integrate with Zendesk and Jira and stuff like that. Are you able to pull the ticket types from those systems as well? Like if I have one for Okta and Google and whatever, or do we have to manually create those ticket types in this platform?
Do you mean in those, like, so when you say ticket types, like if you have like in Jira, you have so I mean, which one are we talking about? Like Jira or Zendesk? Or,
I mean, I use Zendesk, but I don't know if the form you were talking about answers this question. So this is why I'm following up. So say, for example, so in your example, you had like hardware requests or software or offboarding, onboarding, all that. What I'm asking is, like, are those ticket types that you created for this, and then there's something else on the Jira or Zendesk side, or does your application pull in those ticket types from Jira and Zendesk? So we create them there, and like, okay, when we create a new one, it just shows up in this platform.
Either or. So we have this kind of form designer where you can specify like system fields, you can add a bunch of custom fields, you can kind of design the form this way, or you can use what's called external forms where we pull in Zendesk, Jira, and that kind of stuff. So, and then in terms of Zendesk, these are just like when you go into Zendesk, you have your Zendesk forms. We can pull in those Zendesk forms. So then you can say, I'm going to pull in this HR form. You don't design the fields now at this point. You can still build the automation using the fields that are part of that form. So for example, in the IT request form, I'm going to build an automation and I'm going to say, okay, if conditionally, like device type is actually one of the fields that's defined in the Zendesk form, not in our system anywhere, right? It's in the Zendesk form. So we're pulling out like I'm saying, okay, if the device type equals laptop, right? And the laptop is actually a field that's designed in Zendesk form. So you can actually build the automation around the forms, the native Zendesk forms as they're defined in Zendesk. You can manage the entire Zendesk form from Zendesk. And then we just kind of use those fields as they are there, or you can design the entire forms and fields and all that other stuff directly in here. It's up to you.
Question on the interaction piece. I might have missed it as I was trying to desperately fill out something that was due within an hour while you were talking. So apologies there. Are there, like, when you're interacting with the bot in Slack, can it provide like additional responses, either provide additional information or like collect additional information that's conditional?
Yeah. So conditional. So in both of those cases, you can. I think the IT help desk one in the IT help desk, I think we have like a software access request, for example, and then you have like, all of these options. But then if I choose other, it shows up a different box that says you can type in type it in to say which other box. So all of that stuff is, you can write basically conditional logic and stuff that says if somebody chooses this field and this, then display these other fields. You can customize all that. And then again, in terms of mapping, whether that's if you do that in our system, you can do that here. You can make stuff required and show stuff and display stuff and kind of customize the logic in which times that different fields display. Or you can also do that in Zendesk and Jira and stuff, where in Zendesk, you can use, I forgot what that's called in Zendesk, where you can basically say, if this field, if this is this, then display this field and
fields, or I guess
right.
tricky too. Yeah, because I think I really hate Zendesk's Slack capabilities as they stand, and we use Zendesk. But I like Zendesk overall as a product. But I also wish that for certain types of fields that we could gather additional information or additionally supply additional information to users in an easy way. That's like not just sending them an email that says here's some help desk articles to check out, but it's like when we come into specific cases that we're troubleshooting where we know like, okay, this is an emerging issue and we can either give people some additional info on it or we can collect some very specific additional pieces. That's helpful. Second question is, I saw in the integration in the demo that you have some integration with BetterCloud to trigger workflows. As I work at BetterCloud, I would love to know more about that, if that was a real thing.
I wanted to actually ask
a very nicely designed UI.
Is it like a complementary thing, or is it possibly could be one of those like thing that could, be a replacement, because of the automation.
And that's more for me. I think there is a big component of being able to trigger automations, whether it's within one. I mean, every platform has like an automations element, it seems like these days, but being able to trigger BetterCloud workflows that can do a lot of things that end users don't necessarily have the ability to trigger right now within Slack, which is where they're working, would be like a pretty great tie-in together. So if you can expand on that.
So the short answer to what you're saying, there is a very partial integration. Basically what we do is we pull in, like, we give you instructions on how to set up a custom integration, give us your webhook kind of URL into our system, and then we would just trigger that. That's not at all the way that we want to build it. We've actually been interacting with members of your team on the Better Cloud team to see how we can build out integration. We've been doing that. We actually had a call yesterday with one of our customers that is also a Better Cloud customer. That's kind of like, hey, can you build us an integration, please? We really need this. And the reason, one of the kind of driving factors behind this as well is there's a bunch of companies that are using Spoke. I don't know if anyone's ever heard of. They got acquired by Okta. Better Cloud is integrated with Spoke, and all of those customers that are, were using Spoke are now like, hey, what do we do? We're migrating to Focal. Now, what do we use to call out Better Cloud? So if you have any way to help push that along, but yeah, we've been kind of trying to have multiple conversations where it's like we had a customer yesterday. We had a call with Better Cloud. I had talked to another customer today of ours that also uses Better Cloud that really wants that integration. We're trying everything possible to see how we can build more of a full feature set integration. Right now, it's a very we just give you instructions on like, go create a custom integration, go get that webhook URL, pass it to us, and then we'll call it for you.
Is that something that can be done? Can you send outgoing webhooks or HTTP requests as a step within a trigger thing or whatever when you were configuring those?
Like task? Do you mean just like as
is that
a
like a
user?
So like, yeah, as like a is a condition within a workflow, or whatever you want to call it, the workflow kind of builder you were showing of like, if this then that, is one of the actions like send an outgoing webhook?
We started building that on last Friday, and it'll probably be done by this Friday, by like end of today. So by the end of today, yes.
So in an ideal world, in Slack, somebody could say, can I have access to this shared drive or this Google Doc or group? It would go to the line manager for approval. The line manager would approve it. It would then send the webhook request into Better Cloud that would then be able to do the action on the Google Doc, the Google Shared Drive, the Google Group, or assign a Zoom license or add somebody to another Slack channel or whatever integration Better Cloud had. Because all it is, I guess, your APIs and your webhooks talking to their APIs and listening to their webhooks or whatever. So excellent. A lot of scope there for really advanced automation. I had one question in when you were in Slack and going through one of the examples. It was somebody asking for the Wi-Fi password. And I know a lot of these sort of automated AI machine learning chatbots that are out there will automatically give you the answer, based on a pre-populated FAQ knowledge base that you might have in your system. Do you do any of that now or potentially in the future?
Yes. So we have this answers product where you can kind of go in and put answers either manually in here. You can kind of put in some articles, or we actually do integrate with Confluence to pull out articles from there. We integrate with Notion, pulling out articles. And the way that it works is what you can do is on the actual request type, on the different request types, you can mark that as deflectable. So what we generally recommend is doing that, like, your hardware request or software access request, you probably wouldn't do that, but like on a general request, you would do that. And the way that works is you would come in here, ask a question. And I remember seeing that before this demo didn't, before doing this, I saw that the demo didn't work for some reason. But you would basically come in here and say, like, what is the Wi-Fi password? It would go, when you hit next, what it does is it does that search in the background for your answers. I remember the demo didn't show it, but at the top, it would say, like, we found the password, we found the answer to your questions up here. The password is ABC123, and like, here's a couple of articles, but if that doesn't help, here you can still create the request. You can still fill out the rest of the request.
Right. Okay. It's brilliant that it's in Slack, because like on the traditional ticketing systems I've seen, whether it's, Fresh Service that I've used, people put in, their description, they start writing in the box what their problem is. And on the right-hand side of the screen, all the knowledge-based articles will start filtering based on what somebody's typing out. But people never look at those knowledge-based articles. So this seems to be the quicker, better way, potentially when the demo gods are working, to give the people the answer rather than them opening up that, you know, really simple ticket, which, you know, should be self-serviceable rather than somebody, you know, on Brian or Marcus's team having to answer it.
Yeah, and the other way that, like, what some people will do is they'll set up a channel where, you know, you can still ask questions, and you can make the channel where he's, you know, is deflectable. This is one that I remember seeing earlier, so I know it was going to work. But you can also set it up so that anytime that somebody says anything in a channel, it'll also kind of do that deflection piece. So, you know, in this case, somebody asked, "What is the Wi-Fi password?" and said, "Hey, we think we found an answer to what is the Wi-Fi password, ABC123. Here's the article for it." And generally, and then what I'll end up sending a message afterwards that said, like, "Does this help? Yes or no?" If you hit yes, great. Nothing happens. It logs the fact that it was deflected, and that's it. And if you click no, it actually opens up a ticket and creates a request for you.
Right. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. All right, 10-ish minutes left before we all have to run off to other meetings, I'm sure. Any last minute questions?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. Just really quick. If I want to sign up to try it out, can I do that on your website, or do I have to talk to people, or can I just sign up for an instant and start using it to play around with features?
I mean, you can start setting up, and like, you can just go and like go to focal.io and click one of the 15 buttons and say add to Slack and then play with it. We do generally recommend kind of a walkthrough in the first one so that I can show you where all the features are, and, you know, we can kind of walk through like, okay, how do you do that Zendesk integration? What do the different options kind of mean? But no, I mean, there's nothing stopping you from just going to focal.io and clicking the button, and it gives you the full product. There's no blocks on it for any kind of trial thing. So basically what we do is go set it up and then try it out. And if you know, if everything's good, great, use it and, you know, give us some of that money stuff. And then if you don't like it, then uninstall it. Or if you don't, then we'll just block you eventually.
Cool. I like products you can actually try.
Vlad, I would like to make a recommendation where you can market your product. Also, pretty well, I think, is in Mac Admins Slack group. Have you been part of that, or do you know about that?
Yeah, I've had a few decent leads, but hey, if you want to go into Mac Admins and say like, hey, I just saw this focal thing, and, you know,
yeah,
highly encourage that.
In a particular channel that I am fairly active in, we talk about this actually fairly often. It's like, hey, you know, we have this problem, and it's always going back to the whole idea of like, nobody wants to look at Jira or Zendesk, go into Zendesk. Like, the engineers don't want to be there, the users don't want to be there. I'm like, okay, we get it, right?
Is that the Slack at Work channel, or which channel is that?
I'm part of the Toronto channel in Mac Admins.
Oh,
yeah, so yeah, I'm very geographical, local focus.
Excellent, excellent. Well, when we have the YouTube link live for this recording, we can send it over and you can publish it. I do have to ask the Rose question, because the Rose question is asked every call. Price.
$50 an agent a month.
An agent, so it's the people who have access to the admin part of the back end and resolving the tickets.
Yeah, so I mean, if you're using our ticketing system, it's very obvious. It's just whoever has access to be an agent to respond to stuff. If you're using something like Zendesk or something, then that's a little bit more, you know, we're not going to ask you for a license for every one of your Zendesk users. If not every one of your Zendesk users is going to use something like this. If you want, you can, you know, if you know that, you know, you have 50 Zendesk users, but only 20 of them are kind of on the IT team and they're going to be responding to these kind of things, then you do 20 licenses. So, I mean, if you're using our product, it's easy to say what the number of licenses are. If you're using our backend, then it's easy to say. If you're not using our backend, then, you know, it's a conversation that we have.
Okay. All right. Excellent. Excellent. And now we're at the exciting theoretical, hypothetical, virtual round, where if we were in a new environment, setting up a brand new company.
Hold on, Colin. I have 2 questions before we get to that part.
Okay. All right. Okay.
Influence. So the first question was, can you set business hours for that kind of approval process so that people aren't getting approval, like, because somebody could put in a ticket or a request at like 10 o'clock at night. And if the manager also gets that at 10 o'clock at night, like, is there a way to set up business hours for that? And because you could probably ask them the same thing. You showed us a functionality where you can like respond to it in a special way. Like, obviously this is all within the browser or the desktop app. Can you do the similar things on mobile? So if I'm out and about and I see that thing, can I also be like, oh, I can respond to you with the automation thing that you talked about of password reset or something like that? Can I do it from my mobile device?
Okay, so answer one is, can you set up hours? There's two things that you can set up. One of them is hours. You can set up hours of operation. We even have like a holiday schedule thing. So just like uses the bank holidays for that country like that country to make you away. What that generally does is that affects things like automatic responses, so that you can set it so that there's one auto response for when you create a ticket and when you're available, and a different auto response when you're not available. In terms of the specifically like sending out approval requests, one of the things you can do, is this the right one, is that you can actually schedule different things. So it's kind of similar. What you can do is you can set up a schedule. So you can say, on a specific day, on a specific week, specific hour, set up a schedule. So I think what you would do is you would have like a conditional check to say like what day is the ticket created, and then based on the date and time, if it's now is fine, you just send it out, and if not, then you would do an automatic, like you would schedule the approval to go out a little later. So it's not like a native thing where it's like, use these hours of operation. It's just like an extra conditional check that you would put into the system to actually do that. So it is possible. It is possible to do using kind of the conditional automation stuff. And then that was the first question. And then the second question, sorry, again.
Can you do some of the, like you showed us one where you can respond to a ticket by saying like, I want to reset the password in Okta. You can do it on the desktop and on the browser, but can you also do it via the mobile app like Slack?
Got it. Yes, so exactly. So we one of the things that we do is we also have an integration with Slack. So a lot of those things that you're doing with our backend, you can actually do through the Slack backend. So, and it is all synchronized in every direction. So when I took that ticket and I assigned it to myself in the web interface, it actually assigned it to myself in the Slack thread as well here. And then it synchronizes all the messages, everything else. So what you could do is you can go to the Slack app and you can go into Slack on mobile, go into this kind of interface on the mobile side, and then you can take actions from here as well. So you can go and say, okay, I want to go and trigger from Okta directly. I want to go and do a password reset. I want to activate a user, deactivate a signed user, and all that other stuff. You could do that first of all from the Slack app in Slack itself, right? If you don't want to go to a different interface, you don't want to go into Zendesk, you don't want to go into Jira, you don't want to go into our ticketing system, you can actually stick in Slack and do everything from Slack, including all these automations. Or if you're on mobile, then you can go into this app on mobile and do that as well.
Yeah, thank you. All right, now you can go, Colin.
Excellent. All right. It's going to be a lightning round for about a minute each from everybody. Hypothetical, we're starting up a new company. Do we think our ticketing system, help desk, is focal, Slack powered? David, you're unmuted. Let's go with you first.
Sorry, I'm not familiar with this round.
So this is like in Shark Tank, at the end of Shark Tank where they bid and they say yes or no, they're going to buy the product. So this is the hypothetical. So Vlad isn't going to get any purchase orders and isn't going to be sending out any invoices. But in a hypothetical word, could you see yourself using this? Yeah. All right. Excellent. Brian or Marcus, opinions? Could you see this being a solution for yourselves?
Yeah. I think so.
Excellent.
Yeah, I can see it. Definitely this automation piece for a more advanced company, but if I was just starting out, like it seems like a good all-inclusive starting point. Yeah.
Going from a small company to a large company, and you get to that point where you realize you need a ticketing system. And then when you look at ticketing platforms, they're generally very large and they're very complex. You've got the Zoom, you've got the ServiceNows, you've got the Zendesks, you've got the nobody should be choosing Jira. A lot of people suggest it, because obviously if your company is at that sort of size, you're gonna have a development team, or part of your business is using it. I think this is a great option for going and being a professional IT department, and also with that added component of the built-in automations and the potential for the additional automations. So Vlad can, and team and Focal can focus on Focal. They can focus on what they do best, and then don't have the feature creep and all of the other problems that adding in the bits that everybody else has already mastered, those other applications, SaaS management. I think this is a wonderful piece of the jigsaw puzzle. Yes, I would theoretically purchase it. So perfect. Thank you, Vlad. Thank you, Brian, Marcus, and David for staying around. We will hit pause on the recording and hang around for the after party. But thank you, Vlad. And obviously they can find you at focal.io and sign themselves up for a trial.